Hello, beautiful humans. I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not. And today we are going to talk about the Janet Hubert and Will Smith conversation that has been speeding its way through the internet, popping up on everybody's feeds. We've been talking about it, we've been hearing about it, and here's my take. Now look, I like to assume best intentions. That's just who I am. Call me naive, whatever. But this situation in particular had me become a little bit of a skeptical Sally. I'm going to talk about this topic in particular from 2 points of view. So the first point of view is from the perspective that this is a completely sincere apology. It's completely grounded in reality, and Will Smith is truly apologetic and truly feels remorse for how he destroyed Janet Hubert's career. So under that interpretation, I'm going to say that it is a little frustrating that it takes decades for men to own up to their mistakes. And yes, I understand people are complex, people come from complex, different backgrounds, people deal with their own personal traumas, and a lot of people, particularly men, are not reared and are not raised in such a way where they feel like they have to be self-reflective because they live in a world that revolves around their needs typically and is completely built for them. And so there's really not a need created for them to understand other people, let alone understand themselves on an emotional level. So keeping that in mind, it is a complicated thing. So, talking about someone's own self-reflective journey, because I know that I'm not perfect. I know, like, I just because I'm a member of several oppressed communities, I know that I'm not perfect, and nobody exists in a vacuum, and no one makes decisions in a vacuum, and we are all products in some way, shape, or form of our environment and of our experiences and of our traumas. And I know that men are not exempt from trauma, and I know particularly Black men are not exempt from trauma. You know, even white men, straight white men aren't exempt from trauma either, and we don't like to talk about it, but they're not. We are all victims of a society that props up an ideal of masculinity that is unattainable for anyone. We're all victims of it. Now, some of us buy into that system, some of us are perpetrators of that system as well, but none of us benefit from it. So that being said, I do still find it frustrating that it takes decades for Will Smith to come to the realization like, I said some things that may have derailed a woman's career. And from the looks of it, it pretty much did. He called her difficult to work with. And as a Black woman at all, in any sort of professional setting, those words can especially change the trajectory of a Black woman's career when that Black woman is a dark-skinned Black woman. Now, I am a light-skinned Black woman, and I acknowledge that, and I know that there are privileges that come along with that. There are things that I acknowledge that I don't necessarily have to do to get ahead in my career, whereas there are my darker Black-skinned women counterparts who have to do more. And I understand that. And that sucks. And it shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be where a dark-skinned Black woman has to walk on eggshells or she has to always plaster a smile on her face to seem non-threatening. But as it so happens in the current entertainment industry and in multiple industries across the board, dark-skinned Black women have to make certain accommodations just to seem likable, even in the job application process, just to seem like they might be a good fit for the team. And see, that's why I'm really wary of statements like, oh, this person seems like they fit right in with us, because it's like, okay, if you want someone to fit in, right, then you're not actually diversifying. You're not actually creating an environment for different unique ideas, different unique experiences to be involved and to be included, because what you're doing is creating a homogeneous environment. So that terminology just like irks me a little bit, just like makes my nose tickle a little bit. I see a lot of people online calling for reparations for Janet, and I am right there with you. And I do think that it would be really easy for the Smiths to do this, and Will Smith, especially with someone who has as much money as he does, who has many resources as he does. I mean, I haven't seen his bank statements, but like, come on. I can only make assumptions. His entire career, like, I feel like this is a valid assumption that he can do something, right? So I was to give a suggestion to Will Smith. Hey, Will. I do think that Janet deserves a spinoff. I think she, at the very least, deserves monetary compensation in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't feel right to put this online and just be like, all right, we're done. We've apologized, when a Black woman's career was completely derailed. And it also puts into perspective how easy it is for a Black woman's career for Black women's image to be destroyed. I mean, you look at Kevin Hart, you look at R. Kelly and how long it took for someone to blow the whistle and for multiple people to be like, hey, like, maybe this guy just ain't right. Maybe something doesn't smell right in the kitchen. How many lengths Black women have to go, first of all, to be recognized at all, to even reach such heights. And then once they get there, how hard it is to maintain that and to not have it completely snatched from under you. It's truly bonkers how many hoops Black women have to jump through to seem likable, to seem qualified, to get a single accolade, right? Within mainstream media, within the mainstream entertainment industry. And that goes into a whole nother discussion of why is mainstream media the pinnacle of success and like what that even means. That's another discussion. I also do want to revert back to the point that I don't know Will Smith's life. I don't know how long it typically takes for someone like him to be self-reflective to this degree and to even come on a platform and speak openly about this. I don't know what that took. Maybe it took a lot. And I don't think it's my place to take that away from him. Well, that being said, here are my other assumptions about that. This special that was broadcasted. I'm going to look at it now from a lens of skepticism. Because, well, okay, I think it's fair to have healthy skepticism when it comes to anything that a celebrity does ever. Because, you know, at the end of the day, we try to protect the coin. And I'm like, girl, I get you. You gotta protect that coin. But since there's a coin involved, we need to evaluate what you needed to do to get that coin, yeah? Let's talk about this under the assumption that this was a display rather than something completely genuine. Now look. This is where things get iffy. I would like to believe that there are genuine celebrities out there who don't touch branding, who have no interest in putting on a persona whatsoever. But I also know how hard it is as a Black artist to get to the level that the Smiths are at and to maintain that, let alone to be the Black power couple of royalty that they represent. But I also think that the Smiths are really smart. I think they are some of the smartest actors in Hollywood right now. And I say that because even with the Red Table Talks and even with the whole thing with Lil Boy who was, you know, kicking it with Jada, his experience is valid too. But here's my thing. They didn't have to air all that at that time, but they saw that it was about to blow up in their faces. That's my hypothesis. And they're like, okay, let's get a handle on this now before we lose the reins on this thing. It's now. And be able to craft this story the way that we want it to be told. Is that kind of strategy annoying? Yes. Do I fault them? No. God. I'm mad at them. Like, I guess, like I'm not mad. Oprah does it too. And like, so do a bunch of other people. It's like, what do you even, I mean, do you really think that Oprah could be at the level she's at with Oprah Magazine, with an Oprah network, all right? Being one of the most, if not the most successful woman in America, period. If she wasn't this benevolent, warm, motherly character, the only way that white people could stomach someone like Oprah is if Oprah was loving and empathetic. Ugh, the things you must do to make it. Will doesn't have a ton to lose. Like, if he had aired this when he was first coming out, people might have written him off. But now, he's Will Smith, who's married to Jada Pinkett Smith, and they are the Smiths. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of thing that legacy allots you, is being able to have these big, vulnerable moments. Oh, I'm so sorry. Maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. These big vulnerable moments on screen is just because you have some sort of credibility and a fan base behind you to back you up. Now, when he was up and coming, it might not have been as successful. Like, let's be real. I don't know if it would have been as successful. I will say this too. America eats up the narrative of a man who has steered a woman wrong and 20 years later is like, I'm sorry, is because whenever a man cheats on his wife, whenever like a male celebrity cheats on his wife or something like that, even in movies, even in cinema, even in TV shows, we love the narrative of the player who is toxic, who participated in narcissistic behavior. And I'm not saying that those people aren't worthy of empathy, but what I will say is empathy is work. But what ends up happening is America falls in love with these men who have redeemed themselves by saying sorry 20 years later. When it's like, okay. Maybe you are sorry. Maybe you are sorry. Well, maybe you are sorry. But we need to stop this narrative of all a man has to do is in 2 decades say they're sorry and all is forgiven and there's no beef. Like, we need to just cut that out right now, because men are literally ruining women's lives, ruining their careers, ruining their sense of self, ruining their sense of security. And all we do is we baby them the way that we raise boys. We don't raise them to be apologetic. We don't raise them to be self-reflective. We raise them to do whatever they want until they get married. We raise girls to be wives before we raise them to be themselves. And we raise boys to be themselves until they become husbands. I think a lot of the holes within child rearing and how we raise people in general, I think a lot of those holes come out in dating and in partnership, where you're like, wait a minute, we grew up learning completely different skill sets, and now we're expected to dance in a way that is fluid and healthy for the both of us? Ain't gonna happen. You can't raise a boy to conquer and raise a girl to nurture. You can expect a healthy relationship out of that. And now look, I'm not saying that Will Smith is a player. I'm not saying that he was a player. I'm not saying that I know anything about his past relationships. I'm just saying that in general, we do not raise boys to be apologetic. We raise them to do whatever they want until it suits them to do otherwise. And that is my biggest problem with displays like this is, are we raising boys to do what suits them always? And if what suits them is to look like there's growth, is to look like they've done the work when they haven't, we are still on the same road to destruction. That was a lot, but those are my thoughts. Follow me, like this video, subscribe, read up on me, follow those links below, and I'll see you next time, all right? Stay weird and stay curious. Bye. Mwah.